North of the border, Canada is sending a message. The old era of easy prosperity with the US is over. For decades, Canada's economy thrived on deep integration with America. Now, top officials are warning that this foundation is no longer secure. The Bank of Canada and government leaders are openly preparing citizens for a future where incomes may stagnate and living standards could slip. The reason? Canada's privileged access to the US market is no longer a given. Global trade rules are shifting, and the world is becoming more protectionist. Canadian policymakers now see over-reliance on the US as a vulnerability, not a strength. They're calling for a new, more independent economic path, one that's resilient and diversified. This isn't a minor policy tweak. It's a fundamental shift in thinking. The era of predictable, US-led trade is gone. For Canada, the easy road to prosperity has ended. The challenge now, build a new economic model, less dependent on its powerful neighbor. The stakes are high, not just for Canada, but for the entire North American partnership. To grasp the scale of this shift, look back at the US-Canada economic partnership. After World War II, both nations built a model of free trade and mutual growth, formalized by deals like the Auto Pact and NAFTA. This integration fueled decades of prosperity, especially for Canada, whose industries flourished thanks to access to the vast US market. Billions in trade crossed the border daily, supporting millions of jobs and deeply linking supply chains. For years, this relationship seemed unbreakable, a constant source of stability and growth. But this deep dependence also created risk. Canada's fortunes rose and fell with US policy and economic health. As the US turns inward and global rules shift, cracks have appeared in this foundation. The benefits once outweighed the risks, but now the vulnerabilities are impossible to ignore. Canadian leaders are rethinking their strategy, recognizing that the old assumptions no longer hold. The era of taking US partnership for granted is ending. Canada must adapt or risk falling behind. Canada's warnings reflect a global reality. The US-led trade order is unraveling. Protectionism is rising, not just in America, but worldwide, fracturing the consensus that once favored open markets. For Canada, a trade-dependent nation, this is an existential threat. Tariffs and unpredictable policies have made long-term planning difficult for Canadian businesses. The Bank of Canada is blunt. Without major changes, Canadians will see their standard of living slip further behind. The old model, riding US growth, isn't enough anymore. Canada must generate more of its own growth and resilience. The US is no longer a reliable champion of free trade. Both major parties now embrace protectionism. This unpredictability forces Canada to rethink its economic strategy. The threat of future tariffs and disruptions is real. Ottawa knows the era of taking the US market for granted is over. Canada is entering an age of strategic adaptation. The rules have changed, and so must Canada. Canada's new playbook centers on one word: diversification. The goal is to reduce dependence on the US by forging new trade ties with Europe, Asia, and beyond. This isn't just about new customers. It's about protecting Canada's economic sovereignty. By spreading its bets, Canada aims to buffer itself from US volatility and global shocks. At home, there's a renewed push to strengthen domestic industries, invest in innovation, and build world-class companies. Strategic sectors like clean tech and advanced manufacturing are getting special focus. Canada is also working to secure critical supply chains, ensuring essential goods are produced domestically or with trusted allies. The pandemic and geopolitical tensions expose the risks of long, fragile supply lines. Now, Canada is prioritizing economic security over free market orthodoxy. The message resilience and self-reliance are the new imperatives. A striking contrast is emerging between Canada and the US. Canadian leaders are sounding alarms, preparing for tough times ahead. Meanwhile, US markets remain buoyant, and American optimism is undimmed. But this confidence may mask deeper issues: rising inequality, inflation, and household struggles. Canada's approach is blunt: acknowledge the risks, confront the challenges, and build consensus for reform. As a smaller, trade-dependent nation, Canada feels global shocks more acutely. It can't rely on a vast domestic market to cushion the blow. Ottawa believes that honest communication is the first step to real solutions. Canada is choosing realism, facing the storm head-on. The U.S. focuses on reasserting leadership. Canada focuses on adaptation and resilience. These diverging mindsets will shape the future of North American economics. Canada isn't retreating, it's reaching out. The new strategy is proactive engagement, not isolation. With the U.S. turning inward, Canada is stepping up as a champion of open, rules-based trade. It's building alliances with Europe, Asia, and Latin America, creating a coalition against rising protectionism. Canada is reforming global institutions, brokering new trade deals, and positioning itself as a reliable partner. Agreements like the CPTPP and CETA are more than economic, they're strategic. Canada's stability, resources, and rule of law make it an attractive ally in a fractured world. By leading on trade and supply chain security, Canada is making itself indispensable. This isn't just about principles, it's about securing its own future. In a world of shifting alliances, Canada is forging a new role for itself. Canada's pivot isn't a rejection of the U.S., it's a pragmatic response to a changed world. The deep ties between the two countries will endure, but unquestioned reliance is over. Canada's new strategy is about adaptation, not isolation. The old path to prosperity is gone. The new one demands innovation, diversification, and resilience. Ottawa is making bold moves to protect living standards and economic sovereignty. The message is clear. Prosperity is still possible, but it must be earned differently. Canada needs a dynamic economy, a broader set of trade partners, and a strategic approach to industry. Honest leadership is preparing Canadians for the challenges ahead. At this crossroads, Canada is choosing action over complacency. Diversification and domestic strength are the pillars of its new strategy. By facing reality and adapting, Canada aims to secure its place in the turbulent global economy.